We officially have a Big Ten basketball conference schedule. Get in here. Let's celebrate. Yes, it is Talkin Badgers powered by BadgerNotes.com. I am your host, Kedrick Stumbris. You can find the show on the website formerly known as Twitter and YouTube at Talkin Badgers. We have finally made it to a schedule reveal. It is a glorious day as it is time to start talking hoops. And there's a good handful of little nuggets on this schedule that we should break down here because these games are not super evenly distributed in terms of the home and away sets that Wisconsin is going to play, the men's basketball side. That makes for a really fascinating stretch down the close of the season where if you are a Wisconsin men's basketball fan and you're not going to be following the team on the road, you gotta get your attendance in the month of January to be sure. So that's what is upcoming for Wisconsin. I am going to go ahead and throw this image with the schedule up here on the screen in just a moment. So let's get all this here together. Ooh, there we go. All right. We got that taken care of, and now we got to fix me. But this is the schedule as it is in front of us. 20 game conference schedule in the Big Ten. It is wonderful, and we are off to the races this upcoming year. So there we go. That's better. What I see right off the bat is, well, first, there's a change in the conference tournament format. That change to the conference tournament being that the bottom three in the league still make the tournament this year. That is a change from this past season when the bottom three teams did not make the field. That was the weird thing for a lot of Big Ten basketball fans, was that you weren't guaranteed a spot in the Big Ten tournament. But it's something of a normal thing for people who get into like the deep dregs of college basketball, where conferences like the Big West, for example, they don't have everybody get into the tournament every single year. It is something that, just when you get big enough, for example, with 18 teams, it's hard to hold a single elimination tournament over the course of like 5 days. Basically, that's not super easy. And there's only so much court time, let alone digestible television inventory for everybody. And the women's team chose to remain at 15. This is a decision that was made by the league's coaching staff. So if you got big thoughts about the Big Ten tournament, whether it should have stayed at 15 teams, whether it should have stayed never backed off of 18 to begin with, hit the chat. I for one find the idea that the bottom three teams have something to play for, have a way to continue their season. And I know they effectively do that when they get into the Big Ten tournament. I find that a better thing for the entertainment value of the Big Ten tournament and the entertainment value for those bottom three teams in the league. Not to mention the fact that it's just, do you really want somebody going on a miraculous run and winning the auto bid? Now the Big Ten tournament is formatted in a way with these double buys that makes it really difficult for anybody to go on a really deep, almost unimaginable run and steal an auto bid. But I think there are certain levels of, if conferences are going to be this big, you've made your bed and you have to lie in it. So I don't love the move back to 18, but that's beside the point. That's hopefully not something Wisconsin Badgers basketball fans should ever have to deal with. Okay, so a few notes here that stick out to me. The first is this Indiana-Illinois road trip. This Indiana-Illinois road trip at the beginning of February. And then we'll get to some bigger thoughts I have about the February slate for Wisconsin in this overall, is those are two teams that I think are going to be very solid this year. Two teams that have a real shot at potentially winning the conference. Now, is Indiana going to be that necessarily? I don't know. Darian DeVries has to prove that to me. I am not willing to give them the benefit of the doubt just because it is Indiana. But sounds like his son, Tucker DeVries, is more healthy than he's ever been. That makes that Indiana team pretty interesting. And then you go a short drive down the road to an Illinois team that has given Wisconsin fits through the last handful of years. Tomislava Visic, Big Z, his brother next to him. I think this duo of 7-footers, something that Michigan had a season ago and gave Wisconsin some real troubles. That's something that I expect Wisconsin might have a hard time with again. But I think Wisconsin is stylistically more comfortable with what they are this year than they have been in years past. I think the fit of Austin Rapp is a little bit better of a fit than maybe Steven Crowell was on this team. And that's coming from a guy who was pretty high on Steven Crowell all the way through the end of his career. But I think this very short road slate, this very short road trip, is a chance for Wisconsin to maybe struggle a little bit here before it goes on kind of big road slate in February. And I know there's been a lot of talk over the years about, Greg Gard, by the time he gets to February, how do things look throughout the entirety of the year? Can they hang on wire to wire, or is it just hot starts in November, December? But this February, Wisconsin plays 5 road games. 5 road games in the shortest month of the season. The shortest calendar month, Wisconsin plays its most games on the road. They play 3 home games. They play 3 road games in January. 31 days in January, if you're counting. Only 28 in 2026 in February. They play 5 games on the road in February. Now, some of these are shorter road trips. It's not as if they are zipping back and forth from Penn State, back to game in Madison, back out to Maryland, back home. Then you go to Nebraska. No, the conference squeezed these in there for Wisconsin in a way that is a little bit more palatable. And while we were on the topic of road games, I did put up a little poll in the chat asking, what road game would you be most interested in joining the Wisconsin Badgers on this season? Right now, it seems like we got a few votes for the game at Purdue, and we'll get to that because that is a fun game on Wisconsin's schedule to close the year. By the way, really, really, really looking forward to that one. And granted, Wisconsin has some experience in recent years closing its regular season at Purdue, and that the most recent instance was not that fun. But these road games for Wisconsin in February, you have the short jaunt to Indiana and Illinois, come back home, you play Michigan State, go out to Columbus, you play Ohio State, come back home to Iowa, and then you go right on the road again. So there's this short jaunt where you're zipping back and forth on the road between Madison and back and forth to Columbus and whatnot. But then you go out to Oregon and Washington. For having 5 road games shoved into the month of February, this is probably about as reasonable as you can do so. And they all come even still in a really short period of time too. Wisconsin doesn't play February 1st to February 6th. Wisconsin has a full week off after hosting Ohio State and then plays at Indiana a week later. So I do find it odd that these games, if you're going to play so many times on the road, aren't spread out a little bit more. I do find that odd. But if you're going to shoehorn 5 road games into 3 weeks with 2 home games in the middle, so they play 8 games in 3 weeks, that's a lot. That is a lot. It's a lot of travel in a really short amount of time at the very back end of the season. And, they're always going to send Big Ten teams out to do these. If you're going out west, you're going to play Oregon and Washington in one swoop, or you're going to play UCLA, USC in one swoop. So that is what it is. And there is an extra day in there for rest. It's not like you're playing one day, having off, and then playing again. But yeah, these are in there really short. I know I started saying this is probably the most fair that you can make it, probably the most reasonable way that you could schedule it if you're going to play 5 road games. And I meant that more in the sense where, 4 of these games are scheduled kind of in pairs each, right? Pair with Indiana and Illinois, where you can make those 2 games happen in one trip. The pair with Oregon and Washington, where you make those 2 games happen in one trip. But yeah, I made that before fully digesting, I think, the fact that they do not play at all the first week in February. So that's going to be a slog of a stretch. Fortunately, you do get a little bit of a bonus day off before you host Maryland. Then you are right off to Purdue. Again, we're going to get to that. I'm going to close with that a little bit. But 2 weekends on the schedule that stuck out to me just as fun. Hey, there's a lot going on in Madison this weekend if you are interested in Badger sports more generally. To me, these would be the weekend that Wisconsin hosts USC. So that weekend that culminates in this, Sunday, January 25th? Yeah, so that weekend, Wisconsin hosts Penn State in men's hockey, hosts Bemidji State in women's hockey, and that being Friday, Saturday series, and then hosts USC in men's basketball on that Sunday. So that's 3 pretty jam-packed days inside, Kohl Center and LeBron Arena if you want to see all of the things, hockey, basketball. And then there's a similar weekend like this when Wisconsin hosts the Iowa Hawkeyes come February 22nd. That again being a Sunday with Friday, Saturday home series for both hockey teams. The men's team hosting Michigan and the women's team hosting St. Cloud in its regular season finale. So Wisconsin women's hockey having its senior night on that 2021st. And I think technically the men's team having its senior night that weekend as well, if I am recalling and looking at the schedule in front of me as well. Yeah. And a game with the Iowa Hawkeyes. So that is a lot in one weekend if you are a greater Wisconsin Badgers sports fan. And then what I take away, and this was, I think, the first schedule they went to, and Wisconsin was the last schedule. No, sorry to our Cornhusker friends. Nebraska was the last schedule they released in full, but Wisconsin, the second to last schedule released in full. But the very first thing we saw, because they released Purdue's schedule right off the rip, we saw Purdue senior night, Wisconsin Badgers to close the regular season. Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, their last game inside Mackey Arena. And the Wisconsin Badgers are going to have a chance to play spoiler to the Boilers. Rhyme time. That is a game that I think if you are a Wisconsin Badgers fan, that's going to be a hot ticket for the senior night of it all, the Fletcher Lawyer of it all, the Braden Smith of it all, the Trey Kaufman-Renn of it all. And it's Purdue basketball. It's a hot ticket to begin with. But boy, oh boy, if that wouldn't be quite the environment to find yourself in as a fan of the Wisconsin Badgers. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing myself that weekend. Very easy for me to say, get up to Minneapolis to cover the Wisconsin women's hockey team conference tournament final and semifinal that weekend. But that game at Purdue, that's tempting because that's got a ton of college basketball storylines that I would love to be part of telling. Okay, I think those are my very, very, very fast thoughts on the Big Ten conference schedule. I think at the front end, I have a couple of things that I want to mention, but they're a little more small picture. The opener against Northwestern comes on Wednesday, December 3rd. It's these games that the Big Ten shoves into December on top of everybody's non-conference schedule. That's going to be Wisconsin's first game after playing in the Rady Children's Invitational the weekend of Thanksgiving. So there'll be a short amount of time off between there where Wisconsin will play Providence and then either Florida or TCU on Black Friday. And then Wisconsin will host Northwestern. Wisconsin will host Marquette that following Saturday as well. So a lot's happening in that realm before they go on and play at the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And then the rest of December is kind of light. And this is not something unusual for the conference to do, for Wisconsin to do, but basically Wisconsin has a game a week until it gets back into the thick of Big Ten play. After they play Marquette, it's 5 days off until Wednesday when they play at Nebraska. They have, is this real? Is this 9 days off? They play December 10th and then they play against Villanova in Milwaukee. They have 9 days off in the middle of December before then they host Central Michigan on the following Monday, the week of Christmas. Then another 8 days off before hosting the Milwaukee Panthers. So at December, it's going to be real spread out compared to a little bit of a faster pace once things actually start in November. Things slow down again in December until you get to January, and then it's go, go, go. And then, you got that weird week off at the beginning of February, and then it's go, 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 go for 3 weeks. So that's fascinating. Little tidbits here on the schedule. Did not go and take, a deep dive look at, well, this Wisconsin schedule is, but what does Illinois come into that game? If they played, 5 games in 2 weeks on top of playing Wisconsin, things of that nature. I don't know that yet. We'll have to take a bigger look at it, but these were my initial thoughts, feelings, takeaways, the very first things I noticed when I pulled up the schedule. Should be an exciting college basketball season. Looking forward to seeing it. Before then, we'll be back talking a lot more Wisconsin Badgers football. We'll be back tomorrow with, if not before then, with a reaction show to Wisconsin's game at. Oh wait, I'm saying tomorrow. I know we're going to be back tomorrow. If you are watching this live, this show is probably not going to go out on the podcast feed in audio form until tomorrow morning. So that will happen, and then tomorrow evening. We will also publish a show with Gardner Fickle that I'm recording later today as I record this on Thursday, the 18th. We'll come back on Saturday with a reaction show to the game against the Maryland Terrapins. That we'll find some things to talk about in the bye week, I'm very sure of that. So thank you all for joining us in the middle of your workday on a Thursday. Really appreciate a good handful of you joining in here, hopping in the chat, voting in this poll. Large consensus who would love to go see this game at Purdue as we pose the question of which Big Ten road trip would you rather go on this year with the Wisconsin Badgers. So we'll be back tomorrow. Until we talk to you all again then, on Wisconsin.